can't see all of your face.
Pleased to see you all. Thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone. First off, Katie, our Communications and Membership Officer, is managing the webinar today. She will mute us all whilst the presentations are delivered. Just for any of those who haven't used Zoom before, you can change your screen view from speaker view to grid view by clicking on the top right hand corner. Our 15-minute Q&A, which follows the webinar, will be facilitated by Tabby, who's our creative producer. Again, you will be muted during that process. The reason for this is that if all the mics are on, there is then a lot of feedback and that interferes with the sound quality, etc. Tabby, what we ask that you do is add all your questions in the chat box, which is at the bottom, generally around the middle of your screen. If you fill in your questions as they occur through the presentation, then Tabby will go through those with John at the end. A reminder that today's webinar is being recorded, and that's so we can upload it to our website, and then it will be there as a resource for all. So, Tabby is going to help me with my little slide intro. So first off, thank you. I am Maggie Broadley and I'm Programs Manager, and this is our 6th Next Level webinar, so we're delighted that we are seeing returning faces and new faces, always a good sign. Everything that we at the DGU does is framed by our strong vision, which is described in our Distill, our strategic plan, and the overarching aim is to make Dumfries and Galloway the destination place where artists and arts organisations want to live, work and make a living. And we do that by connecting, supporting and promoting the region's creative sector and the communities in which they live and work. It's a wonderfully diverse and exciting region in terms of creativity and community action. So it's really a great place to live and to work, I have to say. Our Next Level webinars have been developed as part of Creatives Unlimited, a 1-year programme with 3 strands: growing leaders, growing ambition and growing visibility. And that really is about connecting creative practitioners across the region and organisations, about help supporting their skills, creative development, and then growing the visibility and advocating for this sector, both internally and beyond. Thank you. We are supported, and we are very grateful for the support of Dumfries and Galloway Council through a service level agreement, but also Creatives Unlimited has been funded by Creative Scotland through lottery funding, the Hollywood Trust, who fund our youth element, an element that we're very passionate about, and also D&G Council, who fund our ICC funding stream. Today, I am very pleased to welcome John King.
Hello.
John is a business advisor, startup business advisor with Business Gateway in Dumfries and Galloway. He has a huge breadth of experience in private sector across blue chip companies, but also within Dumfries and Galloway and as a consultant. John's colleague have said that he is a real team player who brings out the best in everyone. So we are really pleased to have him today, who's going to give us his breadth of experience and top tips on financial know-how and managing your finance for creatives. So take it away, John.
Aha, what a lovely picture. Brilliant. Right. Okay. Well, very nice to see you all. What we're going to do is pop through some slides. And what I would say for most of the stuff we're going to talk about is it's simpler than most people think, and most people are a bit intimidated by this kind of stuff. Where we'd like to get to by the end is that you feel confident, A, about what you're going to do, and B, that you can do it. I'm really happy to take questions. If you type them in, then Tabby will be the question master at the end, and we'll run through them. I've got a set of slides, but my objective is that you leave knowing what you want to know and having your questions answered. Right, so without more ado, let us get on with the show. Okay. So hopefully you can everybody see the slides? Give me a wave, lovely. Thank you, Kathy. That's a lovely nod. Brilliant. Okay. So one of the first questions really is to think about how to structure your business. So I get a lot of people come to me and they say, most of them say, a friend said to me, I should be a limited company because I could save lots of money, or the tax would be better, or that's what people do. And so what I want to do is to talk about all the different options that you've got and what the advantages of those options are and what the disadvantages of those options are. So the most obvious, straightforward and fundamentally simple way of doing it is to be a sole trader. And I would say most small creatives are sole traders, and I would say most startup businesses start as sole traders, and that's the good place for them to be. So a sole trader means that if you like, you and your business are one. So you and your business are one thing. If you spend money, it's you. If you get into debt, it's you. If you're successful, it's you. And it's very simple. If you're not going to take on lots of debt, or your business is not complex and it's pretty much you doing it, you can be a sole trader. Okay. What that means from a government point of view is you have to tell the government through HMRC, I've gone into business. And then they're going to ask you to fill in a tax return. We'll talk about a tax return in more detail later, but essentially in the tax return, you're saying, what did I earn and what did I spend? Okay. There's no need for an accountant if you're a sole trader. There's no need for an accountant because it is so simple. The risk is that you have no protection. So if you run up a load of debt, that's you. Okay. But that would be where I'd expect most people to start. And it's the most simple way to go forward. Okay, so apart from sole trading, you may say, well, I want to work with somebody, you know, and we're going to be a team, and we're thinking of being a partnership. So a partnership is really two sole traders coming together. There's a few more rules about one of the partners has to make sure the other partner puts in their tax return. Most partnerships, they would say it's 50-50. And so really what you're saying is here's a set of accounts with what came in, what came out, and then we're going to just divide those in two and put two in, what came in, what came out into our tax return. Advantages of a partnership, very, very simple. Don't even have to have a written agreement, although we would always suggest you do. And it's essentially slightly more complicated than being a partnership. So from an advantage point of view, very, very straightforward. Disadvantage is that you are something called jointly and severally liable. And I once had a chat to a couple, and I was trying to explain this concept to them, and I said, look, if he takes all the company money and runs off with a fancy one, they were a personal couple, I said, you need to understand, if he buys a yacht, sails off with it, and there's a debt, that as a partner, you'd be liable for that debt. She chuckled to herself and she said, well, I'll tell you what I'd do. I'd go and find that boat and I'll put a hole in it and sink it to the bottom of the sea. I said, well, yeah, you could absolutely do that. You'd still owe the money for it though. So when you're in a partnership, whatever the partner does, you are liable for. Okay, if they can't get the money from the partner, then they'll come after you. The best partnerships work where both partners are doing different things and have complementary roles. That's been my observation in life. I can't tell you this is an empirical fact, but when I've observed partnerships, they work best when somebody says, well, I'm going to do the marketing and the admin and the finance, and somebody else says, well, I'll do the creative, the production, or in a creative sense, you know, I'll do the filming, I'll do the production. So when you're looking to partner up with somebody, I would say look for what roles each of you can do and look for how coming together permanently will make you a stronger team. If you're coming together on sort of project by project basis, you may not want to form a partnership. You may want to say, we're 2 sole traders, but on this particular project, one sole trader is taking the lead and the other one's working for them and is paid out of them. I would only suggest you get into a permanent partnership if you're permanently going to apply for work or do work together, and people are going to pay you the partnership rather than an individual. I would say get a joint bank account, make sure you've both got a bank app working, and then you can see immediately what money's going in and what money's going out, and you can have that debate. People I've met, not particularly creatives, I have to say, but people I've met who've formed partnerships and then come to me to say, I want to exit the partnership. The issues have been around work, really. That one partner's saying, look, I'm doing all the hard work. They're just really, in a sense, acting as an employee, and sometimes not a very good employee. I'm taking all the risk. I'm putting all the energy in, and they're getting half the reward, and I want to end the partnership. One guy in particular, he'd come out of the army. He joined up with somebody in a partnership, and I'd met them as a partnership, and then I met them when he was saying it's not working. And he said, this guy, again, I'm not saying this is necessarily creative, but he said, this guy, he turns up, he smells a drink, he's late, he's unreliable, and he's just not working hard. And so I said to him, well, you knew him in the army. What was he like in the army? Well, he was late, he didn't work hard, and he liked drinking. So, do you know what I mean? And the reason I got into a partnership is the first guy felt a bit insecure being on his own, and he wanted somebody as an emotional crutch. I mean, we all feel like that, so I don't mean that harshly. I understand that. I don't mean that harshly, so please don't take it as a harsh thing. But what I am saying is look at the character of the person you're getting into bed with and decide if they're the right person to partner with you. Okay, then you can become a SKIO, a community interest company, a company limited by guarantee. These are all forms of charitable companies, if you like, or third sector companies. I'm not an expert in this part of it because we don't really deal with charities, but what I would say is the core of this is that you're only going to take a salary out. If the company's wildly successful, you're only going to get a salary out. So there's no division of the profits. Any profits you got go back into the company. If you're a community interest company, if that company folds, then your assets have to be disposed of through another community interest company. Being charitable, I'm using that in its broadest sense, means obviously you can apply for funding. You can apply for funding that other people can't see. Tabby's just saying, so Tabby, can you only, so just interrupting, Tabby, can you only see the introductory page? You can't see the list of...
we can't see the list, so...
So you didn't see anything change there?
No, nothing changed at all. Do you want me to put your presentation on for you, and I can...
Whatever works for you. I'm clicking it here, I've shared it. So I don't...
It's really weird. Right, okay. I would suggest if you stop sharing, I will share the presentation from my end for you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, it's a brilliant second page.
Sorry, folks. Like, just give me 1 second and I will share.
And this makes me feel slightly better, John.
I know
this and I can never get mine to share.
All right, my darlings. Can you all see that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, so that was the first page. And then we've got... There we are.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so so on those bottom three, the community interest, or middle three rather, SKIO, community interest limited company by guarantee. If you're going to go into that, you have to understand that it will open doors for funding, but it will close doors to you taking a share of the profits. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be very well paid in what you're doing, and you can set the salary at a decent level, but it does mean your salary by hour or by time. And so there is a top out on that. You can be a limited company limited by shares. So that's what most people would understand as a limited company. The difference there is that if you like, you're over here, your company is over here, you're two separate legal entities. Any debt you run up in the limited company can't affect you as an individual. So if you ran up a lot of trading debt, and then you know, so you rented somewhere out, you spent a lot of money, and then you couldn't afford it, that would go bust and disappear, but your house, your car, your family, your finance would all be separate. I'm not saying there aren't legal ramifications if you want to borrow money again in the future, but it does protect you. And an example I give of that is, I was chatting to somebody about a builder friend of his who built quite a large company, 12 employees, work dried up for whatever reason, and because he wasn't a limited company, everything he owed collapsed on him, and he lost his house and went bankrupt. So the big takeaway I would say is be a sole trader if you can. It's the simplest thing. Partnership's great. Only be a limited company if you can see an advantage to it and risk, because you will end up paying an accountant quite a lot of money generally. You can do it yourself, it doesn't have to be an accountant, but most people end up spending money with an accountant, and that's £500 or £600 I think you should keep. And if you're going to go down the community interest charity sector, do it for the right reasons. Do it because you definitely know that there are funds you can access, or people will come and help you do what you're doing on a voluntary basis. You need to see it as a charitable exercise. If you're just doing it to get a particular grant, that grant may disappear, you know, in a year or two. Grants are pretty unreliable. So do it only if that's kind of what you want to do. My brother runs a charity, and many years ago I was chatting to him about, you know, what you're trying to do. And for him, he helps disadvantaged kids in education. And for him, it opened up a lot of opportunities to be able to access grants and to be paid by local councils. So think about it clearly. If you've got any questions, let us know at the end. Right, Tabby, next one. Okay, so I'm going to give you the top tips, which we'll repeat at the end, and then I'm going to tell you, as we go through in a bit more detail, why these are the top tips. First of all, get a separate bank account. You're going to have to say at the end of the year what money went in and what money went out. And the other thing you're going to have to say is, what can I spend and what can I not spend? So money in, money out. If you've got a separate bank account and everything goes through it, then you can see everything, and it's very easy for you to separate. It's very easy for you to say, oh, that invoice that I've got a line here that we paid it, but I've got to find the invoice or the receipt that goes with that amount. So it helps you keep track. And also when you're trying to say, well, what money have you had in, you can look through your bank account and say, right, that was our money in. Does that equal what I've invoiced? Is there any invoices not paid? And do the two from a bookkeeping point of view add up together. It can be a business bank account. There's no legal requirement for it to be a business bank account, but your bank's terms and conditions will say, if you're a business, please be a business bank account. I don't come across many people that get switched. If they do it on a personal basis, and it's certainly not illegal, it's just you're probably breaking the terms and conditions. But with a business bank account, they will charge you after a year or two free, but you're talking, you know, £5, £6, £7, £10 a month, so not huge amounts. So it's your choice. Whether you use a consumer bank account or a business bank account, I would always get a separate bank account for your clarity. Also very important if you're a partnership, so you can both see what the other one's doing. Okay, use accounting software if you can, and if you want to analyze, and if you want to make it simple. This is really a question of where you are with technology. We'll go through some of the software you've got and go in a bit more detail. But what I would say is, if you're app happy, as I call it, if you're used to doing stuff on your phone and you like a smartphone, then there's loads of apps which will take out a lot of manual writing it down. I always ask people, you know, what kind of person are you? Are a paper person, a computer person, or an app person? So you have to decide that for yourself. But accounting software will save you a lot of time and effort if it's your sort of thing. Keep originals and copies of all your receipts. That's what justifies you in front of the tax man. If he knocks at your door, he's going to say, how can you justify these numbers? And receipts are the golden ticket. Similarly with invoices, when he says, well, how, you know, how did you earn this money? You need to be able to say, here's an invoice to this person that earned this money. Obviously that protects you against all the you know, illegal money swashing about, money that people can't account for, money laundering. So invoices are really important. If you're out and about and you're visiting people, record your business miles. We'll talk about this in a bit more detail, but this is your chance to minimize your tax, because business miles is an allowable expense. So make sure you do it. Excuse me. Next up, keep 15% in a separate savings account for your tax at the end of the year, okay? 15% is a number we recommend. We can't say it's right for everybody. It's very simple. So you're saying 15% of my revenue goes straight in that pot. If I had £1,000, 150 quid goes in the pot. And that means it's sitting there waiting for you to be paid, waiting for you when your tax bill comes. What you don't want to do is get to the end of the year and think, I am skint. You know, I've just had a bill for £3,000. It's been a great year, and now I don't have any money. Okay, next one, do your bookkeeping regularly and often. 2 reasons. One, you will know how well your business is doing. And often I will say to somebody, well, how much profit did you make last year? And they can't tell me, okay? And that, you know, I'm a bit shocked some of the time. You need to know that. You need to understand how well you're doing. And the second thing is, you're better to bite this thing off in small chunks, keep on top of it, find that receipt, find that invoice, make sure you've been paid for stuff on a week-by-week basis, rather than getting to the end of the year and thinking, oh, I never put an invoice in for something 8 months ago. You know, will they still pay me? Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Or where did I put all those receipts? You just have to do it. I don't think, there are a few people that like doing it. I don't meet them very often. Most of us don't like doing it. I certainly didn't like doing it when I was self-employed, but it needs done. So you need to just do it. Okay, and I would say, if you want to do it regularly and often, you need to put something in your diary. You need to say, well, Friday at 4 o'clock, that's bookkeeping time. I'll crack on with it then. Okay, buy a card machine. This can be a challenge where you have cooperatives. I've come across a few cooperatives where it gets quite difficult, because who owns what, and what are we as an organisation? Will somebody give us a bank account? But the truth of bank cards is people spend more if they've got a bank card. I was chatting to some artists who run a cooperative, and they had an issue, and they're saying they sell paintings for 500 quid. They have to send people to go to the cash point twice to get 500 quid of cash. You know, that is just not the way you want to be. We'll look at some really simple options that can get you going. Have a system in your own house. Where do the receipts go? Where do they sit? Do I put them in a folder? When do I look at them? How am I going to record them? And my final tip, accountants are absolutely brilliant. They can save you lots of money if your business is complex and there's lots of money going in and out. If your business is simple, then you don't need one, and they will charge you handsomely for their time. So if one is going to save you tax, brilliant, get one. If they're not, do it yourself. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what can you charge as an allowable business expense? It's kind of sensible, really. It's a sensible set of stuff. So it's any materials that you use in your creation, any equipment that you buy. If you haven't started, you can go back 6 months from the date you say you started. Anybody that you contract with, that's an allowable expense. If you get together with somebody else and you say, you know, if you can do this part of the bid, I'll do this part of the bid and I'll pay you. That's all counting. Mobile phone, I would all stick half your mobile phone through, because you can't exist without half your business won't run without a mobile phone. Broadband, similarly, you know, you're not going to function without it. So say half of that goes on my business. When you work from home, you can either, there's a formula on the government website which says if you work from home, you can charge this much. It's peanuts, to be honest. If you've got a studio and you're heating that studio because you're home, then you can work out something that justifies it. You can say, well, I'm home for this many hours, I'm working this much time, and I think it's a sixth of my heating electricity bills. As long as you can justify it, and if somebody challenged you on it, put it through. And certainly when I worked at home, that's very much pre-COVID days, there was nobody else home, and I was heating a big house just for me in my little office. And so I would work out, well, actually, heat and light, I think I was about a sixth, thinking back to it. that I put through as well, that would be what I would spend. But you've got to, if somebody challenges you, you've got to be able to justify it. Any uniform, any that you wear, the general rule in uniform is if you wouldn't go down to the pub in it, then it's got a name on it, that's uniform. If you would wear it down the pub, then that's really just your nice clothes. Okay, so you can get more on the government website. It's slightly, what they describe on the government website doesn't fit everybody's circumstances, so you kind of have to interpret. But I would say just be sensible. The most complicated thing is cars, which we'll look at a bit later on. Okay, I'm clicking on it here, Tabby, but it's probably better if you click on it. More will happen. Okay, so these are the card machines. I've just put a little link to an article you could look up to have a think about that, and we'll get this presentation out to you at the end. Essentially, there's three that I know of that are pretty good. There's SumUp, iZettle, and PayPal. So SumUp and iZettle, you get one of these little things. They look like a calculator, about calculator size. They link to your mobile phone via Bluetooth. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You put the number in on this, on the app, of the iZettle app. You put the number in. They put their card on the little calculator thing, and they either put it in and put the card number, or they just tap it, and that is immediately paid. You don't pay a monthly rolling fee. You just pay, it's about just under 2% on iZettle and SumUp, and it's a bit more on PayPal, but if you end up getting more volume, then the PayPal rate comes down. So these are really simple ways of taking mobile payments. And if you've got an exhibition, I know we're talking post-COVID, but if you've got an exhibition, then you really should get one of these, because people want to pay on card. Obviously, in today's climate, cash is literally dirty money. And so I think that whole thing of moving to a cashless society, which we are well on the road to, I think COVID has speeded that up, I think. So I know we may be a long way from meeting people face to face, hopefully not too long, but I would say get yourself a card machine. They really are simple. When I ask people who've got them, I get incredibly positive feedback. And they are just simple. They're really, really simple. If you can work a smartphone, you can work this. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking again. Tabby, beep. Okay, vehicle expenses. So you can buy, if you've bought a vehicle that's totally for your work, which is, I think, going to be pretty unusual for you guys. As if you're a tradesman, a builder, electrician, you may have a van. If that van's liveried up and all you use it for is work, then you can claim everything about that, your tax, your insurance, your servicing, your depreciation, your petrol, and you just put that through as with the receipts. However, for most people in the creative sector, and most people full stop actually that I speak to, they've got a vehicle that's partly that's their vehicle that they use sometimes for work and sometimes for pleasure. And the way the government looks after this, they say if you do a work mile, for the first 10,000 miles, that is worth 45p a mile. That costs you 45p a mile. So their petrol is normally, it'd be lower now, 15 to 20p a mile, depending on your vehicle. It's the depreciation really that's a killer. And then all the costs I just mentioned, servicing, insurance, tyres. And so what the government says is it costs 45p a mile to put a car on the road for the first 10,000 miles. It's obviously worth $4.5 grand. And then over that, they bring it down to 25p a mile. Okay, what that means is that if you're going somewhere that's not your office, you can claim for every business mile as long as it's just a business trip. So if I go into Dumfries, say I was you guys, I was self-employed, I go into Dumfries, I go to Tesco's, I go to see my accountant, I go and see somebody else, that wouldn't count because I went to Tesco's. But if I just went into Dumfries to do a business gateway course and then came back, I could claim that as business miles. Okay. And really all you're doing is totting up your mileage over the year and saying, let's say I did 10,000 miles to make the figures nice and easy. And then you would put as an expense, £4,500 of mileage expenses. Okay. So most of you, I would guess, don't have an office. And most of you, if you're going to an exhibition or a customer, will be able to claim this. If you're going to get into leasing company vehicles and things like that, really, I would suggest go and see an accountant and talk through whether it's best to buy it and get a loan or whether it's best to lease it, because that will have some tax implications. But I'm guessing for most of you, it's just claim your mileage. Okay, next slide. Okay. Employing people, again, you're moving into the arena of chatting to an accountant and getting them to help you. There's quite a lot of things you need to do. A pension now is mandatory. So it's been an introduction time. You'll have to set up a pension for people. Probably the biggest unseen thing is holiday pay, which last time I looked at was about 12% of pay. So it's quite a big amount, depending on how much holiday you give. Sick pay, you'll have to pay. Redundancy if they stay with you a while, paternity, maternity leave. National insurance, which is 13% after about £7,000 or £8,000, maybe a bit higher than that, 8 or 9. And you'll also have to have employer's liability insurance. What does this all mean? Contract with people. You know, unless you've got a steady stream of work that you absolutely know they're going to do, like a gallery that stays open all the time, or a shop on the high street. Generally, we would say if you're going to do a particular project with somebody, just contract with them if they're self-employed. So what you have to say to them, if you employ them, you just have to say, I'm employing you, you need to be self-employed, okay? You don't have any more responsibility than that, apart from recording the money you gave them. So if I end up working for Tabby's putting on a great film show and she wanted me to usher people in or do the car park or something, and she said, John, you know, there's 40 hours work here, I'm going to pay you 10 quid an hour, that's £400. It wouldn't matter if Tabby paid me in cash, bank transfer, check, whatever way, okay, it doesn't matter. It's then my responsibility to declare that income. She would keep a record of that as an allowable expense. And so the taxman could see it, they could see who it went to, but I'm not responsible, she's not responsible for whether I declared it. If I just stick it in my pocket, that's up to me. So contracting with people is very, very straightforward. Another thing worth saying about employing people is, let's say you had a gallery that was open over the summer. You can have a contract with somebody that says, here's the contract, here's what you get paid, blah, 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 blah. But you say this is a casual contract, so I'm not guaranteeing you any hours. But here's what will happen when I do give you hours. Now that's different. You may have heard very bad things about 0-hour contracts, and from a personal point of view, I think they're immoral and we should dump them. But a 0-hour contract is not a casual contract. A 0-hour contract says, I'm not going to guarantee you any hours, but you have to be available to work when I say, and you're not allowed to work for someone else, okay? So that's a 0-hour contract because there's not an equal weighting on both sides. A casual contract says, I'm not guaranteeing any hours, but you have no obligation to take those hours. And casual contracts work quite well for a lot of people. And as long as you're upfront with somebody and say, look, I think it's going to be 15 hours a week. I think we're going to be open from April to October. Are you happy with that? Yes, I'm happy. Here's a casual contract. There's no guaranteed hours in it. So don't be scared of casual contracts, but if it's a one-off, just contract with them as a self-employed person. From their point of view, if they're self-employed, if they earn over £1,000 in the tax year, then they have to go self-employed. But if you paid them 400 quid and that's all they did for the year, they can just pocket that. Okay, brilliant. Next slide. Okay, so from a bookkeeping point of view, what does Mr. Taxman say you have to do? So you may have heard of making tax digital. Lucky for you if you didn't. But essentially that's a drive by the government to get rid of pen and paper, get rid of Excel spreadsheets, and get everybody to input stuff onto software. Now, the reason they're doing that is they'll collect more tax, because when people have to give detail, they tend to be a bit more honest and a bit more structured. And it's much easier for the taxman to investigate stuff because they just be able to suck up for a big computer system. So it's fundamentally, if you're a taxpayer, it's a good idea because we want everybody to pay the right amount of tax, okay? But it's only at the moment applying to VATable companies and for VAT returns. At the moment, it doesn't apply to sole traders. and there's no real date for it to apply. So it's coming, and at some point somebody will say, now you're self-employed, you've got to use software. Okay, and that'll be the commercial software we'll talk about later, but that's not where we are now. So at the moment today, what do they ask? First of all, that your records need to be legible. So if you're handwriting them, that's okay, as long as your handwriting is readable. If you're a doctor and you scrawl like a doctor, that's not going to be acceptable, okay? Second thing is it has to be logical. This is pretty straightforward. So if you're handwriting, you've got, here's what I paid out, here's what got paid to me, in and out. But it does have to be, so you could give it to somebody and say, here's how it works, and they need to understand that system. And the final point is, it needs to be available for 6 years. So I worked for myself more than 6 years ago, and so I can now chuck away all my records, and that's a job for me to do. But you have to keep them for 6 years because that's how far they can go back out. So in a sense, the bar is pretty low. You know, it's not highly complex. And for most of you, it's going to be what we call cash accounting, money in, money out, rather than traditional accounting, which took account of what people owed you and what people had already, or what you owed other people. Cash accounting just says what's gone in and out right now. The fact that you might owe somebody £2,000, that's in the next tax year when you pay it, doesn't matter. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the methods of recording, okay? And they're probably in order of desirability. So the first one is the shoebox, okay? You can have your own spin on this, but this is just where you take every receipt you get and you chuck it in a bag or a shoebox, and you hope that one day you'll get round to sorting out. Or, as you'll hear a lot of accountants saying, somebody comes in and goes, here's my books, here's the bag of receipts, you sort that out, okay? So I wouldn't suggest you ever do shoebox because you're going to pay somebody to sort that out, with a bookkeeper or an accountant. It's going to cost you money which you don't need to pay. So please don't do shoebox. Okay, the next one, if I remember rightly, is diary. On a diary, and this can work quite well actually, if what you can do is when you're getting receipts, you can click them into your diary. So you can actually staple them back into your diary and just say, you know, I bought these brushes, or I got this off Amazon. I'll just click.
John, sorry, I need to interrupt you for 1 second. Something's happened. I don't think everyone can see. So I just need to stop sharing and reshare. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
I do apologize. I'm very, very sorry about that. I just need to reshare it because something popped up on my screen and I couldn't make it disappear. Apologies, folks. That's it.
Could you go back a slide or two?
Sure.
Okay, one more. Okay. So you could use a diary. You could record what you earn on a diary basis, on a day-by-day basis, and that's okay. Next thing will be a ledger. And what I mean by a ledger is just a book you buy from W.H. Smith's or somewhere like that, and you're handwriting in, what did I get in and what did I get out? Absolutely fine, no problem with that. The disadvantage is with the shoebox, you've got to get someone to sort through those receipts and write them out. The diary and the ledger, you're going to have to take it out the diary into another form to add it all up, and probably end up doing a ledger anyway, to be honest. And with a ledger, someone's got to get a calculator out. But if you're a pen and paper kind of person, that's absolutely fine. All I'd say is don't pay an accountant to sort your shoebox out. It's up to you, but if they're going to charge you £40 an hour to go through a load of receipts, it's quite hard to earn 40 quid an hour, I think. Okay, next one up is an Excel spreadsheet, or if you don't want to buy Excel, or you haven't got Microsoft, then Google Docs do a very nice, I'm trying to think what it's called now, but there's a free Google spreadsheet you can have a go on online, which has been perfectly adequate. And will do everything you need to do. So don't go and buy Excel to do this, just use the free Google software. But again, very good way of doing it. It's all going to get added up at the bottom of the column. So you'll have a number of what did you earn. It's quite good for you to be able to see what am I earning each month, and what do I, what's outgoing, how profitable am I? Okay, and then software apps, which we're going to talk about in a bit more detail now. So if we go to the next page. So I was presenting to a load of tourist guides. We had about 50 people in the room up in Dalry as part of the Galloway Glens project. And it wasn't really the main focus of what I was talking about, but I was talking similar stuff about, you know, how do you do your finances? And I said, well, you know, there's software apps. And I was talking about it and suddenly became aware that everybody in the room didn't know what I was talking about. So I stopped and said, okay, who's got a software app? Who uses accounting apps? Sorry, it's a better way of putting it. And one of the other presenters, a very professional guy, said, I have. And he was, I think, pretty much the only person in the room who'd used one. And then he gave a 5-minute spiel about how great they were. So the thing about so if you haven't got it or you haven't heard of what I'm talking about, you know, you're the same as lots of other people, okay? The thing I'd say about apps is they automate a lot of the things that you're going to have to do manually with a calculator or with even with an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, that's the idea of them, and they can make your life a lot easier if you connect it to your government gateway account. It's literally going to be I'm just going to put my tax return in, one click, and it's in. You know, that is a glorious thing. Who wants to log into government gateway, scroll through all the things, you know, and the other thing is they will let you know how are you doing, what tax do you owe. Now I'd still be keeping the 15%. You can also connect it to your bank account and it can do some interesting stuff, which we'll get into, being able to recognize how your invoices connect to your bank account. And obviously everything will be compliant. If you go down the app route, you'll never have a query about, well, did it work? And they become responsible for keeping the data. So the fact that your laptop died and you had it all on an Excel spreadsheet, or you've lost the ledger, no longer applies, because QuickBooks or XERO, whoever you use, are running a massive data center that's hugely backed up, and they are responsible for keeping all your stuff. Now, when I worked for myself, these sort of things didn't exist. But I used one for invoicing, and I found it really helpful because when you send invoices, you obviously want to date them, you want to number them, and you want to keep them and work out who's paid you and who hasn't. And I really struggled with that until I got this app, and then I could go, right, that's paid, that's paid, that's paid, that's not paid. And then I could nag people to pay me. So if you're happy to learn them, because I like all software, they need a bit of learning, you will absolutely be rewarded. Right, let's go to the next slide. We'll look at some specifics of some of the offers that are out there. Okay, so Sage is the big one. So Sage, most medium-sized companies are going to have Sage, and Sage works really well. And they do a sort of Sage-like online. You can do bookkeeping, payroll, or do your national insurance. You connect it to your bank account, and you can create invoices. So with the creating invoices, what will happen is, say I was doing a bit of work for Maggie, then I might say, okay, I'm going to put Maggie in as a contact in the same way she would into your phone. I'm going to put who she is, what her company is, and what her email address is, okay? And then I'm going to set up an invoice in the app. And that invoice will say, you know, John Kring's Artistic Creations, name of my company, okay, what my name and address is, what my bank account details, and it will format it all nicely. And the only thing I'll need to put in for this particular invoice is, you know, marketing advice to Maggie, you know, £200. And then I can click a button and it will send it off to Maggie. The system will know that I've sent Maggie an invoice and will be watching to see when it's paid. This one doesn't do it, I don't think, but the next one does. So if we go to the next slide, I'll explain. Yeah, so QuickBooks is probably the market leader. For a sole trader, I think they do an £8 a month option, and it's half price for a while. Now, the prices always change, which is why we put circa. The bit that this does, which is really nice, is it connects to your bank account. So say it does it in 3 years. So say I meet Maggie and we discuss it, and I say, Maggie, I'm going to do a quote for £200. So I've created her as a recipient. I can literally sit and do it on my phone, or I can go online and do it and just say, marketing advice for Maggie, £200. So that's a quote, goes off to Maggie. Maggie says to me, that's great, John, please do it. So then I give her my marketing advice, and then I would say, turn that quote into an invoice. That would be one button. And then that emails off to Maggie. That's now an invoice as we agreed. She's expecting it because she's seen the quote already. And then she pays it, and into my bank account, it says, Maggie, pay me £200. QuickBooks will go, is that £200 to Maggie the same as the £200 invoice you've got outstanding? I'll say, oh, yes, it is. Click. That invoice then goes into paid, and I don't need to worry about it. And then that income is automatically put into the income in category for when I'm doing my bank account, my tax return. So it's really smart. And if I was going to Tabby, I can literally chat to Tabby, sit out in the car, and just write the quote or the invoice just on my phone and send it. Okay, so rather than wait until you get home, get out, get your laptop stuff fired up, blah, 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 you can do it there and then while it's fresh in your mind. The other thing, and I absolutely love this, we're painting our church, right? And I'm the guy that's buying all the paint that I've got to claim back. Okay, so I'm really paranoid about losing my receipts, okay? And am I keeping them all to claim my expenses? So what these apps will do, enable you to take a photo of it, it scans it, it picks out what the actual price was, okay? It reads the price, and it will say, this one's paint $45.99, and it will say, is it $45.99? You know, like when you put your checks in at the thing, machine reads them, similar process. I'll say, yeah, it was $45.99. Then it actually machine reads, and I'll say, oh, this is for Maggie's project. So I'll put it on Maggie's project, okay? Or no, sorry, apologies, not that. I categorize it as equipment, okay? In the categorization of an expense. Next time it comes in, it will read 3 home hardware, and it will say, is that £45? And do I need to put that in equipment? With one click, that's saved on their system. It's down as $45.99, and it's correctly categorized. And I can chuck that away because I don't need that anymore. So it means you never have to worry about losing receipts, and you can just get on with life. So QuickBooks is probably the leader. They're certainly most well known, and probably it'd be where I would start if I was looking for something, apart from one other, which I'll tell you about, which is cheaper. Okay, next slide. Perfect. XERO, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Very good quality product, often recommended by accountants because they work through well with accountants. When this stuff first came out, I was like, oh, this is a threat to accountants. You know, maybe they won't like the software. But actually, what they like to say is, actually, it's quite good because what we get is a good record. And what accountants want to do is to advise you on tax. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any time on Free Agent. It's a very good piece of software. The important thing to pick up is that last point. If you bank with RBS or you open a business bank account with RBS, they will give you this software free, and it's excellent software. And so if you don't want to pay, get Free Agent. Right, next one. Okay, this is just justification for that thing I said about 15%. What I've done is I've put up here all the different rates. You're going to pay 2 different rates of Class 2 and Class 4 national insurance. There are now 6 different tax rates, including 0%. Okay. There are tax calculators online, which you can say, my predicted earnings are this, what tax will I pay? But most people don't know. And for most people, this gets too complicated. And that's why we say for your first year in particular, keep 15%. If you want to change that to 13, 12, 20 in the next year, knock yourself out. But that's a good way to start. And it stops you having to always try and work out what tax do I owe. And if you're left with a little nest egg at the end of the year, I'm sure you'll find something to spend it on. Next. Brilliant, thanks. Okay, so this is what they, if you're self-employed, this is what they ask you for. Okay, and it's pretty simple. If you've done some works employed, so say you work in the post office and you paint, or you're employed by an arts organisation as an employee, then they'll give you either a P45 if your employment finished in the year, or a P60, which is a statement of what did you earn and what was your tax. You have to keep that, and that has to go in on your self-assessment. Any income from trusts and pensions needs to go in. Investments, banking overseas, donations to charity go in if they're gift aided, because that can help you if you're in the 40% bracket. Pensions, either way. Some state benefits are taxable, so you need to talk about those. Student loan repayments, and then expenses from running the business. Well, I think I missed out income from self-employment, point 2. That's what you have to put in. For a lot of people, they're not even putting in that because they're just saying, this is what I earn self-employed. So it's not particularly difficult. Okay, next. Okay, VATable, this is a great problem if you've got it, okay. If you're earning over 85 grand, then you need to pay VAT. That means you need to charge everybody 20% more. You can claim VAT back on materials you buy, but for most people, what they're buying and what they're selling at is different. So therefore, they're going to be worse off. If you like, they're going to lose margin if they don't move their prices up, if that makes sense. So my general view would be, unless you have to pay VAT, I would avoid it. If you were selling to a lot of VAT registered organizations, then it might make sense. But for most people, most businesses, and certainly most creatives, don't register for VAT. It's also a pain in the arse, basically, all the admin that you have to do. So avoid like the plague if you can. And if you can't, well done. Well done. Brilliant. Next page. Okay, which brings us back to the original. These are my top tips. Hopefully you can see how they're justified. And really what I would say is, bookkeeping, doing your tax is like driving. Pretty much everyone can do it. It's not fundamentally complicated. You don't have to be intelligent. You just have to be a little bit disciplined and think about what you're doing. Brilliant. That's everything I want to say, Tabby.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. And my apologies again, everyone, for the little mix-up. Our friends at Microsoft sent me a message and it popped up on my screen and I couldn't get rid of it. So that was why I had to interrupt you. I'm sorry, John. Now, we've got a few questions, folks.
Oh, good,
and if anyone's got any questions they want to ask in person, just give me a wave and I will, our lovely Katie will switch your mic on. Accounting software, the costs. Now, I was very excited to hear about the Royal Bank of Scotland giving you the software for free, which is fab. But for those who aren't with RBS, those costs, are they paid every month? Is it paid in an annual lump sum?
Really good question. Ooh, I don't know if they're paid. The costs we quoted were monthly. They move around all the time. You'll be able to get a deal. Generally, I haven't looked at it recently. QuickBooks is the cheapest. I don't know if they offer you an annual subscription. I'd have to go and have a look at it. What we'll do is, Tabby, we'll have a look and I'll email everybody out about that.
That'd be great.
At the end of the thing. But generally, the way the whole world is going is you pay a monthly fee or you pay a little bit less if you buy it up front for a year. That's generally how life goes. Okay.
And then another question is, do you have a link or a suggestion for a resource where we can find templates for the different types of contracts? Because while a lot of creatives won't necessarily be in a position to employ people, they may want to take on freelancers to help them with various different projects that they do. And knowing, having access to a kind of contract template would be helpful.
Okay, I'm going to say something about contracts first, and then I'll answer the question second. Okay, so I can tell you a little story. I like telling stories. Many years ago, as a young man, I worked at T-Mobile, or one-to-one as it was then, and we spent 50 grand on this huge piece of kit, and we had an agreement with another big company, and then they turned around and said, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. And I was like, well, we've got a contract. So I went to the lawyers thinking, well, we've got a contract. They have to do what I've asked them to do. They're pulling out halfway through. So I went to my friend Paul, very clever man. I said, Paul, look, we've got a contract. He said, oh, John, it's never worth going to court for 50 grand. I was like, okay, so you're telling me this contract's worthless? And he said, well, practically yes, because we're never going to enforce it, because by the time we've enforced it, we'll have spent more than 50 grand. So so I was really shocked, because I naively thought if you've got a contract, that would mean you got what you paid for. Now there's a small claims court and stuff like that, but fundamentally I would say, if somebody lets you down, you're very unlikely to go to court for them. I'm not saying if you've purchased something from them, they haven't delivered, but for most stuff, what happens is somebody lets you down, an energy of going to get it back is not worth it. So when you're writing contracts, just bear that in mind. Mostly they're about clear understanding on either side of what you're going to do, and hopefully you've got a level of trust in this person anyway.
Okay.
So in a way, don't get too hung up on them. If you're working with somebody, you sent them a Word document that said you're going to do X, Y, and Z that you typed up and agreed, and you send that to them and they email back, yes, you have got a contract. Okay. That is a contract. They have said they will do that. Okay. What we'll do after this, Tabby, there are, I'd have to go and look at it. There are various sites online where you can download contracts, and we would be able to find one. There'll be a pro forma. It cost about 40, 50 quid, and you could use that if you wanted to on an ongoing basis and change the names. So we'll come up with a link for that, and there's several different sites that do that. Rocket Lawyer is one of them. So you can do that, but what I'm just a note of caution, just be clear what your contract will and won't do for you.
Maggie wants to say something.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm a member of the Scottish Artists Union, they have templates for contracts for artists, and you as an individual who's doing work for someone else, and also if you're commissioning, I would say that Scottish Artists Union are really good. They also, for a relatively modest membership fee, they also cover you in terms of your professional insurance, public liability. So I mean, John is right, contracts are difficult things to enforce. However, if you're a member, go and check it out, and if you're not, just check out whether it's worth becoming a member. Okay. Thank you.
So, brilliant. That's brilliant, Maggie. I think that's great advice. Chamber of Commerce, if you join them, they can give you legal help as well. If you say you join because of Business Gateway, they'll give you a year free, and they can help you with contracts as well. The other thing I would say is something I haven't touched on, but it's worth touching on when we talk about this, is payment terms. If you're working for a large organization and it's a tendered piece of work, then they're likely to tell you how quickly they'll pay. So you're kind of stuck with what they're going to say. They should pay quicker than they do, but they'll say it's 30 days or 90 days, 60 days. If, however, you're contracting and it's not sort of a set contract and you're saying they've asked you to do a piece of work, then it's up to you to define how quickly you want to be paid. There are no rules about it. You can say, I want to be paid in 7 days, and if they accept that, that's great. So I would, don't feel like there's a proper way and there's not a proper way. Do what works for you and what you think works for the customer. And the other thing I would say is, if they haven't paid you in that time, that is your money. And a lot of us feel a bit awkward about ringing up accounts payable and saying, why haven't you paid me? But you really have to, because some companies won't pay you. I mean, I've tried to pay somebody through the council for a small amount of money. It's been an absolute nightmare because of our processes, okay? But you need to know, if you're working with a large organization, just understand, do they need a purchase order number before you do the work? So with the council, if you don't have a purchase order number, they can't pay you, okay? So no matter how good the agreement is, no matter how nice the person is you're dealing with, you just need to understand, do they work with purchase order numbers? If they do work with purchase order numbers, make sure you get one before you start doing anything, because that purchase order number will be the difference between you getting paid or not getting paid. And no matter how reasonable you are, once you've done the work, getting a purchase order number is much harder than when they're desperate for the work to be done. And it's not that they're bad, their focus will just go on other things because life is busy. Okay, sorry, Tabby, next question.
Just a very general question. First of all, does anyone else have any questions they want to ask John in person? Anybody got anything else they wanted to ask? Well, the final question that I've got for you, John, is for any of our attendees or members who are watching this video after the fact, how do they access personal one-to-one support at Business Gateway?
Oh, it's really simple. You just ring up or drop an email to us, and we'll get in contact. It'll be me, Carol Ann, or Alan. So it's not loads of us. You don't go into some massive pot, and we'll pretty much. I'll pretty much talk to anybody. So and we can do a phone call or we can do a Zoom. Zooms work a bit better, I would say. There's more of a. It's easier for me to get a feel of who you are and for you to understand kind of what I'm saying. And we'll generally help a business as much as they want, or you know, or an individual self-employed person. I'll pretty much give I'll normally drop them an email back saying this is what we talked about, this is the action points, and then they've got my details and they get in contact. So, you know, we're publicly funded, we work for the council, so we're here to help you in whatever way we can.
Maggie?
You know, I've just there's also, I've spoken about the Scottish Artists Union, but for makers out there, Craft Scotland, they've also got guidelines about some tips for financial tips for makers. So check out all these other, as well as the great advice from Business Gateway, some of the more sector specific organisations, because they've been putting out a lot of advice on websites, particularly during the last 101 days, I think. Wow. And to reiterate, QuickBooks, I use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks are very good, and it's a £15 monthly fee. And I know, actually, I remember when I was just making that can sometimes seem a bit, don't even £15, but it is worth it. And I'm not receiving any commission from QuickBooks at all. Really good.
Brilliant.
Thank you, John. If no one has any more questions, I want to say thank you to you, John, for spending your time with us this morning and giving us all that detail. I was furiously scribbling notes while also paying attention and changing pages for you. I've learned some things, so that I'm really grateful. Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah. Well, I reiterate my thanks, Tabby's thanks to John, also to Katie, who is how many percentage of the iceberg below the surface, who keeps all your bookings running through and has managed us today. To Tabby, as always, who works with me in developing the programme, but also is a marvellous host and broadcasting person altogether. Thank you all for coming. A reminder, we will be sending you out a feedback form at the end. Katie will send you one out, so please do complete that. Keep in touch with us. We're not just here for webinars. Our contact details are on the website. So we'd love you to get in touch with us. Thank you all for coming. Have a lovely afternoon. Take care and hope to see you next week. Details of our next webinar are on the website. Okay, thanks a lot, folks.
Thank you.
Okay.